Hello. I want to talk about a matter which has been weighing on my heart, and I think it's best for me to explain it via a video. This incident dates back to the year 2019. As soon as the tax season was over, I left this is around the month of April of 2019. I left for India to take care of my dad, who was rather sick back then. And I was gone for almost about 2 months, from April to April's third week on to the beginning of June. During that point of time, my wife and daughter were back here in San Jose, and our neighbor, whose name is Eric Floyd Hartman, he is a lawyer in San Jose, and he approached my wife and said he exchanged some pleasantries, and after that he said that he wants to talk to me and where I was, etc. We've lived at our home for about 18 plus years, but we have never, it's just been a formal relationship and since hello, how are you kind of thing. I've never had any business dealings with this gentleman. And he expressed his desire to meet me to talk about one of his clients that needed help with some tax returns. My wife texted me and said, Mr. Hartman wants to meet me. And I said, I'm here right now. I can't accept any assignment based on just, without even understanding the rudiments of what this client needs. And so when I came back in early part of June, Mr. Hartman approached me. He was at my doorbell and he said, hey, hi, how are you? I'm so, gave me his credentials saying that he was a Marine. He was a lawyer here for 46 plus years. And he taught law at Santa Clara Jesuit University, a bunch of credentials to justify who he is. I said, I understand. And then he went on to speak about his client. And he said, I should take up this assignment. The assignment essentially was to amend 4 years of tax returns for his client and for his companies, because apparently the previous CPA who had undertaken it did not do the right job. And so that CPA was fired. And this was very essential because Mr. Hartman's client, whose name is Gerhard Guggenberger, was in the ICU somewhere in Utah, and he has 2 small children, minor children, and if these amendments were not done correctly, these children would not inherit any of the properties that Mr. Guggenberger owns, etc. And then he told me that he has a general power of attorney on all of Guggenberger's requirements. One of them being finding a CPA to take care of this. I was hesitant because I had come back from India because I had left for an urgent need, family need. I had put most of my clients on extensions. And my mind was to try and take care of my clients' tax returns rather than take on a new job. So I kind of told them I have a challenge. I have several, hundreds of clients whose returns are on extension as my priority. He said, no, this is very important. Somebody is dying and yada, yada, yada. And I was still hesitant. And then he said something that really, got me interested in taking care of matters. He said, that is me, I'm a devout Christian, and his client Guggenberger is a Roman Catholic, devout Roman Catholic, and it's my Christian duty to help a dying man. I had not seen Guggenberger. All I know is Mr. Hartman, who is my next door neighbor. He's ringing my doorbell and asking me to take care of a job with all these explanations. And, that touched a chord. And I said, okay, if I have to do it, I have to do it and help out in a situation where I was non-suspecting of what Mr. Hartman's intentions through this amendment was. So I said, I would need time if you have to have me do 4 years stuff. He says, I have done everything. Okay, so this is Mr. Hartman's proposition to me. He says, I have the power of attorney. I have worked on Mr. Hartman's amend returns, and I've prepared everything, but it's all in manuscript form. What is needed is to put it on a proper tax software, and then print out all these returns for the last 4 years and give it to him, and he would take care of everything. And if there is any questions or audit, etc., that Mr. Hartman would handle it. That was the understanding. So I gave him our engagement letters. I gave engagement letters for every one of those entities. So there's an individual, his name is Gerhard Guggenberger. He owns an S corporation. He owns a C corporation, and there is a limited liability partnership. Essentially, it had to do with a property in downtown San Jose on First Street, which was sold. It was sold in the year 2018 for $72 million. And Mr. Gerhard Guggenberger had inherited 45% of that property, and the 55% of that property was owned by KB Homes, which are, they're called Tarsini family, or they're the ones who own 55%. So Mr. Hartman's client got about 30 million and odd for his share of this $72 million property that was sold to Gary Dillenbaugh, some from Valley Investment. It's basically the whole of downtown San Jose was undergoing a remodeling, and this building, this is a historic building, was where incidentally, Mr. Hartman is a tenant in that building, and Gerhard Guggenberger is his landlord. That building was sold, and Hartman had a relationship with Mr. Guggenberger as his attorney, and so he took on the task of finding another CPA, and that became me. Now, normally CPAs amend returns that they're familiar with. I'm not familiar with any of these things, and just by somebody having a conversation with me for half an hour at my doorstep, I'm not going to. I didn't even invite Mr. Hartman to come inside the house because there was a lot on my mind for my own clients, and I had to schedule and figure out when am I going to do this stuff. In any case, when I gave him my engagement letter, what Mr. Hartman did was he just ripped apart the whole engagement letter, and he started telling me, I know more about your profession, that is my profession as a CPA, than I do, and that he's a lawyer and lawyers are above CPAs, yada, yada. He went into a different spiel and mindset. That's when I started getting an insight into what kind of a person he is. And I said, okay, so what do you want me to do? This is our standard engagement letter that we send out to all of our clients. And I don't know what exactly you want. So then he put a Word document and he gave it to me. So about 6 pages of an engagement letter. He gave it to me. So this is how I want an engagement letter done, and I want you to put it on your letterhead and give it to me. And so I looked at it. It was kind of it is basically, he could sue me for non-performance if I backed out. That was what it was. I didn't suspect anything at that time because, number one, he says he's a Marine, and I have a lot of respect for the armed forces because I come from a family back in India that has 300 years of armed forces and law enforcement people in my family. And so I have a lot of respect. In fact, even my own family here in the United States, I have cousins and nephews who are in the Air Force and in the Army in high positions. So I didn't think much about it. But I told him, I'm going to mark every tax return that I do as I'm not responsible if anything comes up, because I honestly don't know the story. And I don't know enough to defend myself if IRS asks or the Franchise Tax Board asks me any questions. So he agreed to that. He says he's responsible. So so essentially what it meant was it was 4 years of typing out an amended return that was prepared by Mr. Hartman that I had to put on our software as a preparer and then send it out. So I marked every return saying that I'm not responsible to the IRS and to the Franchise Tax Board for anything. Any questions come up, it has to go to the client, Mr. Guggenberger. So fine, we did all these returns, and Hartman had to give me a detailed instruction on how to go about meticulously working on every one of these returns, because he is the architect of all of these amended returns. So I did it as per his plan. I have that letter with me with Mr. Hartman's detailed instructions, and we did this. And there were questions that kept coming to my mind whether what was being done was right or wrong. And I would keep going back to Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hartman then would have a very different demeanor. He would get angry at me, get the bloody job done, and goddamn job done. Don't delay. Somebody is dying. Hurry, 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 hurry. So anyway, we finished the whole task. It took us about a month or something, because every return is this big. It's like parchment paper, scribbles and writings. I had to figure Hartman's handwriting on every one of those. There were 30 and odd returns. You can imagine four entities, federal and state, spread over 4 years. So that itself, four returns can be seen as 8 returns, because the federal and state were very different explanations had to be given. So essentially it was 8 returns, 8 fours are 32, easily 32, 35 returns were involved in. There were some of them were Delaware corporations, so Delaware was also in the mix. So we did all this, and unbelievably, the Franchise Tax Board gave back $2.5 to $2.6 million as a refund to Mr. Gerhard Guggenberger as a result of all of this amend work. What Mr. Hartman had engineered was an adjustment of the tax basis. And the reason he wanted 4 years done was because he started from 2016 to build a story. These are historical buildings. They don't have purchase documents of the historical value of these properties. So Hartman, through his arguments, through this tax return, arguments that Mr. Hartman had built up, he was trying to justify a cost basis, which would be more on a kind of an adjusted cost basis. America doesn't follow that. There are other countries that have these kind of rules where you adjust the cost basis because of inflation and a bunch of things. So by adjusting the cost basis, the original capital gain that was determined by the previous CPA was being challenged through this amendment to reduce the capital gains down substantially. So whatever money was paid as taxes through the previous CPA was being recalled. Mr. Hartman gets $200,000 as annual retainership for various things that he does for Mr. Guggenberger. And that is one of his biggest interest, that lifelong he is getting a retainership from Mr. Guggenberger. That is his business. But he was very pompous about it. He says, I have reduced my practice substantially. And to his words were, Mr. Guggenberger is my cash cow, and I am going to get more than $200,000 every year. What do I care? I have enough money. I have enough real estate and properties. I'm a rich man. I'm one of the wealthiest attorneys. And he's a very pompous kind of character. I don't care. But this is the kind of talk he engages in. So long story short, the refunds came, and I think the refunds came sometime in the year towards the end of 2020 or 2021. Hot on the heels of that refund, Franchise Tax Board audit department catches on to this whole thing after all the money has been released as refunds. They catch on to this, and then they send an audit inquiry letter to Mr. Guggenberger. Guggenberger takes that and hands it over to Mr. Hartman. And Mr. Hartman thought his ideas were bolt-proof and nobody could challenge it. And here he was now having to answer the Franchise Tax Board of California about why $2.5 or $2.6 million was given out as refund to the individual Mr. Guggenberger, as well as some of the refunds came from the corporations as well. Around this time, on November the 30th of 2020, as I said, Mr. Hartman is my next door neighbor. We were taking care of some stuff in our backyard, and we had got an arborist over to take down 2 palm trees, which were problematic because there were roof rats which were breeding there and getting onto our roof and creating a lot of problems. Remember, this is COVID time. And my wife said, we need to get rid of these trees, because when you get rid of those 2 trees, we were trying to address the roof rats problem. So we had this arborist on our property who took down these 2 trees. We don't live in a subdivision which has any homeowners association. These are independent individual family homes which have a common easement that runs between 5 homes. This is not an HOA. And so each one of us is responsible for our segment of the easement to keep it clean and to keep it free of any debris, etc. So around 10 o'clock, I got a knock on my door on 30th of November 2020, and it was Mr. Hartman. And I opened the door. I was preparing breakfast for my daughter. This is COVID time. So my daughter was online schooling those days. And Mr. Hartman started abusing me with foul words out of the blue. I was shocked. On the one hand, not long ago, he had told me he was very happy with getting the refund and all that kind of stuff for his client. He said, I'm a very good CPA. He gave me some text messages saying, you're the best, yada, yada, yada. I didn't care. I had my own clients' work to take care of. I never enjoyed this assignment, being goaded around by Hartman and being pressurized to do it. I just did it, and just to get rid of the headache of working with Mr. Hartman. I never wanted to do anything again involving him. So we had amended these returns. It was like I saw it more like a typing job, because everything was as per his requirements. It was like a boilerplate thing, just taking it out from parchment, from manuscripts, and transferring it onto a tax software and generating it as manual returns and sending it to Hartman to get signatures, yada, and take things forward. And I was shocked. Why is he abusing me? And my daughter was standing beside me, and he started abusing some of the foulest. And he said, I'm going to make sure that you go to jail. I'm going to make sure you're only fit for flipping hamburgers and mowing lawns. And I'll make sure that you are destroyed. I was like, what's wrong with this man today? And then I just shut the door, because my daughter was getting frightened. And she started, ever since that, my daughter has been experiencing a lot of trauma. She's a lot better now. But the poor kid has suffered a lot from the kind of threats that he was saying. And my daughter would get up in the night and ask me, Daddy, why is Mr. Hartman sending you to jail? I said, child, I don't know what he's talking about. You don't have to worry. And so, but our daughter was very frightened. And from then onwards began the biggest harassment of our life. And we were wondering what is wrong, because I am not aware of this audit thing happening, because I don't get informed. It is Guggenberger and Hartman. They were the ones who connected on that, and Hartman was supposed to represent Mr. Guggenberger. So at the same time, the CPA at the Franchise Tax Board was she and her boss were very vehement about why that money was released, and they were not happy with the answers that Mr. Hartman was giving them. And he was trying out the same strong arm tactics that he was trying with me. It was not working. With the Franchise Tax Board, they wanted real answers, and they were questioning the tax basis, the adjustment to the tax basis. Quite natural. So I got back to my office room. I was working from home those days, and I started working. And while I was working, I got a call from the arborist, saying, Mr. George, we don't want to work on your property. Your neighbor is chasing us away. All the 9 people who were there, they were working. So one tree had been completely brought down. They were very responsible about their job, and they had brought down one tree, and all of that debris from the tree was in our backyard. And they ran away because Mr. Hartman started abusing them and threatening their company, and they all left. And we were wondering what's going on. And I came back to my desk, and I found that there were text messages that were threatening me. There were emails saying, I had done something illegal by taking down those palm trees. These are Mexican palm trees. I had a permit for that later on from the city of San Jose, because initially we were told by the arborist saying that these trees don't require a permit. They're not in a designated area where they can't be chopped down. They are considered as a menace of a tree. And so I believed these arborists because they had good reputation on Nextdoor and all that stuff. So this audit inquiry and our tree cutting was kind of running around the same time. And something triggered Hartman to want to attack me. And then from then onwards, anybody visiting our home, our daughters, friends, parents, they were being stared down. Their license plate numbers were being noted by Hartman. Anybody coming to our house, he would start interrogating them. Contractors or any clients of mine were being harassed. Our garbage and recycle bins were not allowed to be serviced. Parking of our cars was being made difficult. He would put nails on our driveway. He was acting very strange. And in the middle of all this, there was a lot of debris on our backyard, and my daughter could not go to play, nothing. My daughter is an outdoor kid. She stopped playing on our easement because of Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hartman, incidentally, somewhere in February of 2021, the third week of February 2021, my daughter was standing outside. She was taking some pictures for a school project, and Hartman brought his SUV right up to her and revved up the engine and scared her. And the child came running upstairs to me and said, "Dad, Eric is scaring me." I saw the look of fright in my daughter's eyes. I said, "What is this?" By that time, we were enduring a lot of these kind of harassments and bullying and filthy abuses, standing on the easement and saying, "Come out here, where have you disappeared? Have you cut your balls?" All kinds of filthy muck language. He would call me a cure. He would call me a fuckface. Anytime I step out of the house, abuses would greet me, my wife, fat lady, this and that. And our daughter was petrified by all these behaviors. So this is going on for about almost a month and a half. When he did this to my daughter, I said, enough is enough. My daughter is frightened. I couldn't think of that. I couldn't bring myself to collect myself to thinking that this is enough anymore. Because earlier I was thinking it's like water over a duck's back. I was ignoring all his behaviors because I have I'm a busy person. My practice keeps me very busy. I don't have time for the kind of nonsense that Mr. Hartman engages. He's not retired, but he's 70 plus years old. He's made his money in his life, and he has all the time to mess around with people. I don't have that time. I have a child who was in those days, she was in middle school. Now she's a high school sophomore, and the poor child's grades have suffered because of all the trauma. We've been enduring this kind of trauma for the last 3 years. So imagine, from 30th of November 2020, this started, and now it's the month of November. Today is what? The 8th of November 2023. It's almost going to be 3 years since this harassment has started. Hartman started harassing us a lot. So when the second tree was downed on 26th of March of 2021, I had the San Jose police be on our site to clear, because so imagine, from 30th of November 2020 to March 26th of 2021, our backyard was a mess. And it was winter time in San Jose. Nobody could go out. We could not entertain any guests. We were worried and puzzled by Hartman's behaviors. Every day he would trouble us. He would put lights which would flicker. It was almost like Nazi concentration camp lights that would flicker, keep on flickering, and disturb our sleep. Honestly, we have not slept for 3 years. We have always worried about what all Mr. Hartman has filed a lot of spurious lawsuits against us. Those details I can provide. But he's been constantly harassing us. We have a restraining order against Mr. Hartman, which is now a 5-year restraining order after the initial 6 months temporary and 2 years permanent, and then 5-year restraining order. Mr. Hartman has given us a lot of grief and continues to give us trouble. We were never able to understand what is the reason behind it. And it has a lot to do with him having committed this tax fraud. He has helped his client commit a tax fraud by generating all these refunds, and he's not able to justify the reasons to the consistent questioning by the franchise tax board, is what my understanding is. Franchise tax board has never contacted me because, as I said, I had marked on every one of these returns that I'm not responsible, and that was the basis on which I took on this assignment, and I didn't know. Now, Mr. Hartman, meantime, had he was not able to answer all this. He's trying to put the monkey of this audit on my head to frustrate me even more, to give me basically trying to shift the blame around and blaming me, whereas I'm not the one to blame. The previous CPAs who had done whatever they did, and Hartman engineered a whole amendment, and I was just carrying out what I was asked to do as per the engagement letter. So for some reason, this continuous harassment, we have a restraining order in place. Mr. Hartman started filing spurious lawsuits about my CPA firm. I'm involved with retirement planning. So there's a firm in Denver through whom I function. I'm as the president of that organization. I'm a nominated guy. I don't have any executive powers. They call me president because this is a company which has CPAs and investment advisors, financial advisors who are part of this organization. And I function as their spokesperson. So they call me president, but I don't have any I don't own the enterprise. I don't have any executive powers. Anybody can ask me. The board can anytime ask me to step down, and that's it. I get a salary for being their representative. That's it. So he's made all kinds of ridiculous, just casting aspersions on me just to get me all riled up, which I don't. It's upsetting because I have lost a lot of money through this last 3 years of peace of mind, health, money. My wife has been in emergency. Our daughter is suffering health-wise and academically. And even now, we are in the throes of all this, and Hartman continuously harasses us. I believe it is about him being discovered on the fraud he helped his client commit. And he is trying to, get me also down. And I don't know what his intentions are. What we know is we have suffered a lot of personal injury from all of these ridiculous allegations. Sometimes he's alleging about our fence, sometimes it's about our home. So this is the kind of nonsense that we are continuously bearing. We have documents, we have police cases against this man. All documentary evidences, videos, security camera videos of his misbehaviors. The court has seen this, but it doesn't stop because he's a lawyer. He keeps inventing newer cases against us. We tried to move away from our home because it was a bad influence on our daughter, and we wanted our daughter. We have only one child, and the most important thing for young parents are to being sure that our child has a good future. I worked and lived all around the globe as a professional accountant, and everywhere I've earned the respect of people. And Hartman is alleging all kinds of ridiculous nonsense that I've never done, and all kinds of allegations. There's no proof to anything that he says. And this is the kind of malarkey and nonsense and constant harassment towards us is what I wanted to share over this video. And any questions, I'm more than willing to provide answers for. And we need a good personal injury lawyer to represent us once he looks at all of the matters. And this is something that I'm very open to bring up, but Mr. Hartman never allows anything to go to trial. He files spurious lawsuits and keeps kicking the can down the road. Right now, on November the 15th, there are 2 criminal cases against him for violating the restraining order coming onto our property. He has been handcuffed and taken to prison for violating the restraining order, but he never stops. As a lawyer, he believes he's above the law, and he's very foul-mouthed. He threatens the entire neighborhood. He's got me, basically our life has been on hold for the last 3 years because of all this harassment. I've not been able to grow my practice. I've been working out of my home. My office is near Santana Row, and I've not even been able to go there because I know Mr. Hartman has cronies, and he tries to attack us. We are afraid for our very lives, the kind of behavior that Mr. Hartman engages in. And so Mr. Guggenberger called me sometime in early part of 2021 and said, Mr. George, I need your help to find a tax attorney. I said, for what? He said, you know what, I'm being audited. I said, for what? That's when I came to know what's going on. And I said, can I see the audit letter? And he mailed it to me, and I looked at it and I said, Mr. Hartman refuses to represent me anymore, and he wants you to take over. I said, how can I take over? I don't know the whole story, and I'm not going to do that. I said, well, can you help me find another tax attorney? I said, I can try. That I can try. So I approached a tax attorney here, a CPA tax attorney, and I told him, I know the person. I told him this is what the story is. He heard it on the phone. He said, this looks like tax fraud. I said, yeah, that's what even I suspect. So we were about to meet, I think, somewhere or in the month of March or April. I'm not sure. This dates back to 2021. But we had a meeting. We were supposed to meet 2 days before the meeting. Hartman calls Guggenberger and says, what happened? Is Mr. George coming to my office to pick up all the files? You don't want to go into that ramshackle building. It's a dungeon building in downtown San Jose where Mr. Hartman's office is. And if anybody is even killed, you won't even know. That's the kind of a dungeon building it is. Because it's an old building which is being dilapidated, and it was to be redone completely by the new owner. So I didn't go to his office to collect anything because, number one, I was not going to take responsibility for representing Mr. Guggenberger. And he understood. I never knew all the background story, so he was fine. When Mr. Guggenberger told Hartman that it's not Mr. Koshi who is going to take up this. It is a person he's connecting me to, and we are going to be meeting him in 2 days' time. Hartman immediately realized that if anybody else looks at these tax returns and what was done, they will figure out that the cost basis has been tampered with to generate refunds for his client and also for his own aggrandizement, because as I said, he's getting a $200,000 retainership. Mr. Hartman immediately realized the danger, and you know what he told Guggenberger? I'm going to be taking it up again. Don't worry about it. We don't need Mr. Koshi. All of a sudden, a change of tactic. And Guggenberger calls me and says, we don't need, cancel the meeting with Mr. Robert Lee, who I had, with whom we were supposed to meet up to see if he would take up this representation. I said, what happened? So Guggenberger says, no, Mr. Hartman said that he's happy to take it up again, blah, 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 some story. Hartman is very good at making stories. So the plan to trick me didn't work. And into taking on the load of this to make me lose more of my peace of mind. And Hartman came onto the saddle, and then onwards started more and more harassment. See, Hartman put a lien on our home, which we finally got it removed in July of 2022. And that's when, sorry, 2021. And that's when we put our house on the market. We wanted to sell our house. Hartman frustrated that entire effort of getting our house sold. He would chase away the realtor. He would chase away prospects, saying all kinds of negative things about our home. There is so much to all this. It's constant bullying, harassment, and racism directed at me and my family. And that's the essence of what I wanted to convey through this, this recording. And yes, I'm open to any questions that any attorney would have to help us out, because we are really frightened of the way Mr. Hartman behaves, and we need help. We have had attorneys in the past who have represented us, and they've taken a boatload of money from us and have done nothing to represent us properly. I don't know the legal process. I would just trust them, and they would keep asking for money. When it reached about $145,000, I said enough. They were dragging things on, and they were literally letting Hartman set the agenda for everything. And Hartman is very vicious, and I don't know what kind of a person he is, but he's definitely not a good person. And there are many attorneys in San Jose who know Hartman, and I've been to around 35 to 40 attorneys since all this started, and nobody wants to represent us. And those who want to represent us want huge amounts of deposits, and then on top of that, pay their retainership or their fees, which is about $850 to $900 per sitting. And we don't have that kind of money. I'm running a small business, and I'm a sole practitioner, and I have to, end of the day, I have to take care of my family, and did not want to be bogged down with all this, but want an attorney who would work with us on a contingency basis against this evil man called Eric Floyd Hartman. Thank you so much.